I never thought grief could sound like silence. Not the soft, peaceful kind, but the heavy, airless kind that follows you home and sits beside you at the dinner table. The week my parents passed, the whole world seemed to fall out of rhythm. Cars honked in the street, children laughed on the sidewalks, and all I could do was sit by the bay window of our house in Willow Creek, staring at the magnolia tree that my mother planted when I was a child. She used to call it the heart of the home, the tree that would watch us grow old. I never imagined I would stand beneath it alone. My name is Emily Parker, and I was 25 when everything I thought I inherited vanished overnight. My brother Ryan was 30, handsome, successful, and charming enough to make anyone believe a story he told. We grew up close, sharing late-night milkshakes at Redberry Diner after football games, dreaming about what kind of lives we'd build. He always said he wanted to live in a house like this one someday. He just didn't say he'd do it by taking ours. After the funeral, we met at Hayes and Wilburn Law Firm in downtown Lexington. The office smelled faintly like old books and polished wood, the same smell that used to fill my father's study. Mr. Hayes, an old friend of our parents, sat across from us with a gentle but tired expression. He explained the legal formalities, the estate division, the will. Ryan interrupted every few minutes, asking about timelines and property transfers, his tone light but insistent. I mostly stayed quiet, nodding through the fog of shock. "Your parents left the family estate jointly to both of you," Mr. Hayes said, his voice patient. "It's written clearly here." Ryan smiled, almost casually. "Of course, Emily and I will figure it out." But we never did. Within a month, I noticed small things. The front gate code suddenly stopped working. My keys no longer opened the front door. When I texted Ryan, his replies became shorter and delayed. "Busy right now. I'll call you later." When he finally did, his voice carried that confident tone I recognized from his college years, the one he used when trying to sell an idea before anyone asked questions. I've been talking to some people about upgrading the place," he said. "You don't really live there full-time, right? Maybe it's best if I manage things for now." I still remember that night vividly. I was sitting in my small one-bedroom apartment just outside the city, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound. It had been less than 2 months since the funeral. My father's watch still sat on the windowsill, ticking softly, the hands unmoved from 6:12, the time the hospital called. Suddenly, all I could hear was Ryan's voice saying, "I'll handle things." A week later, the pictures started showing up on social media. Ryan standing by the marble staircase, a drink in his hand, with captions like, "Building a new legacy," and "Nothing but hard work and blessings." The house looked different, painted, redecorated, glowing under evening lights. Guests laughed beside the pool, posing for group shots. He even changed the brass plaque by the gate to say "The Parker Residence," as if our parents were just a story that came before him. Something deep in me snapped that night. Not anger exactly, but a quiet, solid certainty that I was witnessing erasure in real time. My mother's piano, the one she used to play on summer Sundays, was visible in one of his photos, but the old frames filled with family pictures were gone. It felt like watching someone repaint your memories in another color. I tried calling him again. He didn't answer. I drove to the house the next day. The security guard at the gate, a new one I didn't recognize, stopped me. "Sorry, ma'am. Mr. Parker said no visitors today." Mr. Parker. I opened my mouth to explain who I was, but then realized how ridiculous it sounded. "I'm his sister." The guard's hesitation lasted barely a second before he shook his head and said, "Orders are orders." That moment broke something in me. I turned the car around and drove for hours through the countryside, past roadside diners and high school football stadiums, until the sun sank behind the hills. I stopped at a place called Hilltop Cafe off Route 87, where the waitress poured me coffee stronger than memory and told me, kindly, that everything feels impossible until it doesn't. Her name was Ruby. She told me her brother once walked away with half her inheritance too. "The thing about truth," she said, "is it gets tired of hiding. One day it comes knocking whether you're ready or not." That night, I decided I wouldn't chase Ryan anymore, but part of me couldn't rest. I still had my mother's letter, the one she'd left sealed in a wooden box. I hadn't opened it since the funeral, afraid it would break me. When I finally did, I found a folded copy of the original deed to the house. My name was printed clearly above Ryan's. For the first time in months, I felt something closer to strength than grief. I called Mr. Hayes. "Were there any changes to the will Ryan made after the funeral?" I asked. There was a pause on the other end. "No, Emily," he said carefully. Legally, nothing has changed. The property is yours as much as it is his, if not more. He asked to meet me at his office the next morning. When I arrived, he was sitting behind his desk with a stack of papers and an expression that told me he'd already seen enough to be disappointed. "I've reviewed the county records," he said. "Ryan filed a secondary deed transfer claim right after the estate execution, under a family management clause that your parents never signed. That makes it invalid." The weight of those words filled the room. Invalid. I remember feeling both sick and calm at once. Mr. Hayes leaned back in his chair and said, "If you plan to take action, you can, but I suggest you choose carefully how." I told him I didn't want gossip or lawsuits. I wanted truth, not revenge, not public drama, just truth. The days that followed were slow and heavy. I picked up extra shifts at Monroe General Hospital as a part-time nurse assistant, partly to distract myself. During lunch breaks, I would sit in the staff lounge with a tuna sandwich from Rick's Deli, scrolling through Ryan's social media posts like they were someone else's life. He announced a grand party for the reopening of his new mansion, inviting half the town, business partners, and online influencers alike. Someone even called it the event of the year. I could almost hear my father laughing bitterly somewhere. Ryan always loved a stage. The night before the party, Mr. Hayes called again. "Are you sure you want to do this, Emily?" he asked quietly. "Yes," I said, "because I don't want revenge. I want to stop pretending I was never here." I remember standing in front of my closet, trying to decide what to wear, as if it mattered. I finally chose a long cream-colored dress my mother had bought me for graduation. It had been sitting untouched since that day. Soft cotton, delicate lace near the sleeves, old but full of meaning. I paired it with a pearl necklace she gave me when she said goodbye. That night, I barely slept. My dreams wandered between childhood memories, Ryan teaching me to ride a bike in the driveway, my father grilling burgers on the porch, my mother laughing over lemonade, and flashes of the present, loud music and flashing lights. The contrast felt haunting. When I woke up at 6 the next morning, the gray light of dawn filled my room, and I felt strangely calm. It was the kind of calm that comes when you've already lost everything you feared losing. By noon, I printed the original deed, placed it in a beige folder, and met Mr. Hayes in front of his car. He looked at me the way my father used to look when I did something brave but risky. He straightened his tie and said, "If Ryan really made this event public, then the truth will be public too." The mansion stood at the top of the hill, its white walls reflecting the autumn sunlight. I could hear the music from half a mile away. Cars lined the street, and the sound of laughter spilled into the air. People drifted around the gardens, holding champagne glasses, posing for photos near a banner that said, "Welcome to the Parker Legacy." That word, legacy, pressed into me like a bruise. I stayed in the car a moment longer, my hand gripping the folder. Mr. Hayes looked at me gently. "When you step out," he said, "remember this isn't about taking something back. It's about showing it was always yours." I nodded. Then I opened the door. The rest of that day would become the turning point of my life, though at that moment it felt like stepping into a dream you've had too many times before. As I walked up the front steps, conversations paused. Heads turned. I could feel dozens of curious eyes tracing me, whispers rising behind champagne glasses. Ryan appeared at the top of the stairs, grinning as though seeing an old friend. "Emily," he said loudly enough for others to hear, "you made it! I didn't think you'd want to come." "I wasn't invited," I replied evenly. The crowd murmured. He laughed in that easy, performative way he always did when challenged. "You don't need an invitation, this is family." His tone carried that syrupy edge that made my stomach twist. "Come on, everyone's dying to see the house." I stepped closer. "They've already seen enough," I said. Mr. Hayes stood beside me, holding the folder quietly. Ryan's smile faltered. He glanced at the papers, then at me, his confidence momentarily cracking. I could see the calculation flickering behind his eyes, the way it always did when he sensed trouble. But I didn't speak. Not yet. I wanted silence to do the talking first. Inside, the music thumped faintly beneath polished floors. I noticed the walls, white marble now where our mother had once hung childhood drawings. They'd painted over the small pencil marks our father made on the doorway to track our height each year. I ran my finger across that spot quietly, almost in mourning. It was in that moment I realized something life-altering. Grief doesn't end when people die. It ends when the living stops pretending that memories can be rewritten. Before the truth came out that night, I had one final thought. Sometimes revenge isn't loud. It's showing up, steady and unbroken, where others thought you'd never stand again. If you're enjoying this story, take a second to like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss stories like this one. Comment below with a short phrase that captures what you felt. For example, a stunning story about quiet justice rediscovered. Your support truly keeps these stories alive. Still, I held myself quiet. The night air smelled of wine, roses, and secrets. I looked at Ryan again, remembering all the summers when we used to run through these halls playing hide and seek, swearing we'd never let anything come between us. Now, the golden light flickered across his face, and I barely recognized him. He gestured toward the crowd, smiling for cameras. "This house," he began, his voice dripping charm, "is more than walls and windows. It's proof that when you work hard and stay loyal to your dreams, blessings follow." I almost laughed at the irony. Loyal to his dreams, maybe. Not to truth. Mr. Hayes adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat, ready to speak, but I shook my head. Not yet. Timing mattered. Stories I'd learned always save their turning point for when the audience leans in the closest. I looked around the room, at the chandeliers, the reflection of flickering candles on glass tables, and the faint sound of someone whispering my name in disbelief. Some faces I recognized, family friends who looked at me with unease, as if being seen beside me would cost them. Others were strangers, drawn by spectacle. And Ryan, standing there, wearing my father's cufflinks like trophies. In that moment, I finally understood what my mother once meant when she said, "The house will always recognize its owner." Because standing under that roof, despite the lies, it felt like the walls themselves were waiting to remember. That was the last breath before everything changed. And even though I hadn't spoken yet, I could already feel the tide turning. I knew that when I finally did, the silence that followed would speak louder than any revenge in the world. The air inside the mansion felt heavier than I remembered. It was perfumed with fresh lilies and expensive cologne, but underneath it lingered something older, the faint scent of our mother's lavender candle, the one she used to light in the evenings. Standing there, I could almost hear her favorite jazz record spinning in the background, soft and haunting. The laughter, the chatter, the glasses clinking, all of it faded in slow motion. Ryan's voice echoed above it all, bouncing off marble and memory, but the words no longer sounded human. They sounded hollow, rehearsed, desperate. I walked toward the grand piano near the entrance. It looked the same from a distance, but up close, I noticed scratches on the edge, small chips where my mother's ring had once tapped while she played. My eyes burned. I remembered being 10, sitting beside her as she played What a Wonderful World, her smile mirrored in the polished surface. That piano had survived decades of holidays, storms, and family fights, but not vanity. Ryan replaced the old wooden bench with a velvet stool. I pressed one key. It was out of tune. He noticed. "You always were sentimental, Em," he said, voice dripping with amusement. "It's just furniture. I had to modernize the place if I was going to entertain investors." Investors. That word made my chest tighten. Investors? You threw a party in our parents' home and called it an investment? His grin widened. Not just any party, a new beginning. Some of the guests tonight are from Monroe Financial, others from Blake Realty. They're helping me turn this place into something useful. Something useful. I looked around and saw the antique window panes, the carved oak banisters, the crystal chandelier that once belonged to my grandmother, all stripped of meaning. It was already useful, I said softly. It was our family. He sighed, glancing at the crowd that was now growing curious, watching us with cautious fascination. "Emily, let's not do this here. You can't live in the past forever. You're still working at Monroe General, right? You've got your little apartment, your nursing gig. You should be proud of that. Leave the management side to people who know how to make things happen." His tone sounded polite to strangers, but to me, it was a dagger wrapped in silk. I could see his reflection in the framed mirror behind him, perfectly styled hair, handcrafted suit from Prescott Taylor's downtown, one hand casually in his pocket. He spoke like a politician pretending to care. Mr. Hayes stepped forward slightly, but I touched his arm and shook my head. I wasn't ready for him to reveal the deed yet. First, I needed Ryan to show the world who he really was. "Ryan," I said slowly, "Mom and Dad worked their entire lives to keep this house. They built everything here, every memory, every promise. You think buying new furniture makes you their legacy?" He gave me a patronizing smile. "You always did get emotional about these things. Look, Em, we both know Mom and Dad loved you, but you weren't exactly the responsible one. You drifted. You left for college, then switched majors 3 times. I stayed. I built stability. That's what Dad wanted. He told me himself before he died that someone soon would have to take charge. He was lying. My father never said that. My father believed in fairness, in balance. The anger that rose inside me wasn't fiery. It was cold, settling deep in my chest like ice. He had crossed a line that couldn't be undone. The guests around us began whispering. Some were trying to make sense of the tension. Others seemed to know exactly what was happening and leaned in like spectators at a play. My hand brushed against the folder Mr. Hayes carried, hidden near his coat pocket. I took a long breath, steadying myself. "That's funny," I said, "because I remember Dad's last words differently. He said he trusted both his children to honor his name, not sell it to strangers." Ryan's jaw tightened. For the first time, he didn't know how to respond. Before I could say more, a woman with an expensive dress and glass of Chardonnay stepped closer and said to Ryan, "Honey, everything all right?" She was one of those people who smile with their lips but not their eyes. Ryan quickly regained his mask. "Everything's fine," he assured her, laughing awkwardly. "Just family business. You know how siblings are." I wanted to end it there, but my heart wouldn't let me. I had carried silence long enough. "Family business," I repeated, my voice shaking yet clear. "That's exactly why we're here." I reached out my hand toward Mr. Hayes. He nodded once and passed me the folder. The gesture caught the attention of everyone nearby. Ryan frowned. "Emily, don't." But I did. I opened the folder and pulled out the document, aged, creased, but unmistakable. The golden embossed words from the Lexington County Deeds Office shimmered faintly under the chandelier light. "This," I said, raising it slightly, "is the original property deed, signed by our parents 21 years ago. It names 2 owners, Ryan Parker and Emily Parker. Equal, not partial, not conditional, equal." The crowd grew silent. Music from the other room stopped mid-song. Even the servers froze, unsure if this was part of the event. Ryan took a sharp breath and forced a strained laugh. "Emily, that's ridiculous. That document's outdated. The estate was divided. This is inappropriate." "Funny," said Mr. Hayes, stepping forward at last. "Because this document is the latest certified copy, never altered, never replaced. I confirmed it with county archives this morning." His voice was calm, measured, and unshakably authoritative. Ryan's guests looked at one another. Murmurs spread like wildfire. Someone whispered, "Wait, so she owns half the house?" Others raised their phones, recording the moment. Ryan's face turned pale, then flushed red with embarrassment. "You're ruining everything," he hissed under his breath. "No," I said softly. "You ruined it the moment you decided legacy was something to sell." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then quietly, Mr. Hayes closed the folder. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said politely, "I believe that clears any misunderstanding about ownership. The residence is, by law and intention, the property of Miss Emily Parker." Ryan's arm dropped limply to his side. He looked smaller somehow, deflated. His girlfriend stepped back, avoiding his eyes. The crowd's energy shifted. Not quite sympathy, not yet judgment, but something in between. Embarrassment mingled with fascination. I didn't gloat, didn't raise my voice. Instead, I let silence stretch between us, powerful and clean. There was a peculiar beauty in that stillness. It was the same kind of silence my mother used when she stood her ground. Not angry, just final. If you're feeling this moment as deeply as I did when writing it, take a second to like this video, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another story that brings truth, strength, and emotion to life. Comment below a short phrase like, "A breathtaking story of justice and calm power." I'd love to hear what this story meant to you. The tension finally snapped when Ryan stormed across the foyer toward the hallway. Cameras followed him, flashes lighting his path like lightning bolts. I didn't follow right away. I needed the crowd to see who left and who stayed. When I finally did, I found him standing by our father's old office door, shoulders shaking. For a brief instant, I saw my brother, the boy who once carried me on his shoulders after my high school graduation, who stayed up late helping me study algebra. "Ryan," I said quietly, "I never wanted this to become a war." He turned abruptly, eyes filled with anger and something close to fear. "You humiliated me." "You humiliated yourself," I replied. "You lied to everyone because you thought I'd stay silent. But you forgot where I come from. I learned strength from the same people who raised you." He looked away, pressing his hands against his face. You don't understand what it's like. Always being compared, always expected to deliver. You left, Emily. I stayed, and they still looked at you like you were the good one. For a moment, I felt pity, then sadness, then clarity. Maybe they looked at me with love, not expectation, I said. You were too busy trying to earn what you already had. He scoffed bitterly. Fine, take it all. The house, the name, whatever makes you feel righteous. I don't want it to hurt you, I said, but I won't let you erase me. He stared at me for a long time. The sharpness in his eyes softened, if only slightly. You always were braver than I thought, he muttered before turning away. I returned to the main hall. The crowd started to disperse, people whispering apologies and awkwardly congratulating me. The servers resumed their duties with nervous smiles, offering macarons and sweet tea as if trying to wash away the tension. I walked through the room, past the grand staircase, past the piano that no longer sang, and out to the back garden. The evening breeze carried distant sounds of the city, the faint roar of cars, a train in the distance, the hum of traffic lights blinking red against nightfall. I stood there under the magnolia tree. Its branches swayed gently, petals drifting down like falling snow. The old swing our father built was gone, replaced by a stone fountain that looked expensive but sounded hollow. Still, the earth remembered. I closed my eyes, pressing my palm against the bark, and whispered, "They can change everything, but they can't change the roots." That night, as the guests began leaving, Mr. Hayes joined me on the porch. "You handled that with restraint," he said softly. "I've seen people go to court for less and lose themselves completely. Restraint is all I had left," I said. If I screamed, I'd sound bitter. But silence, the right kind of silence, is louder than rage. He smiled faintly, handing me the keys. "Then this silence belongs to you again." I took the keys slowly. Their metallic weight felt symbolic, grounding, like a pulse. I slipped them into my hand and stared at the house one last time before turning off the porch light. Later, when I got home, I couldn't sleep. The adrenaline had faded, leaving only the echo of what had happened. I replayed each moment, the crowd's shock, Ryan's face collapsing from confidence into disbelief, the comforting steadiness of Mr. Hayes' voice. I made tea, sat by the window, and watched the streetlights flicker. Outside, a storm began forming in the distance. Thunder rolled faintly across the hills. It reminded me of the night my parents died, how the sky had cracked open as if to take something sacred. But this time, the sound didn't scare me. It felt cleansing. At 3 a.m, I took out my journal and began writing everything down. Not as evidence, but as memory. Every house keeps echoes of its past. Every heart carries its own restoration project. I realized this story wasn't just about reclaiming property. It was about reclaiming reflection. Somewhere deep down, I knew the hardest part was still coming: forgiveness. But as I looked out the window, lightning cutting across the horizon, I promised myself that forgiveness would come on my own terms. Not because anyone demanded it, but because peace had always been mine to give or keep. Outside, the rain began to fall, tapping against the glass in a rhythm that felt almost musical. I remembered my mother humming that same rhythm while cooking dinner: fried chicken, cornbread, and sweet tea for Sundays after church at Haven Chapel. I smiled faintly, realizing that even grief can sound like home if you let it. And for the first time since my parents died, I felt it. A flicker of belonging. The kind that couldn't be bought, faked, or stolen. That night, I knew that everything was about to change for good. When morning came, it arrived quietly, soft and pale through my apartment blinds. The rain had stopped sometime before dawn, but puddles still clung to the street outside, mirror shining beneath lamplight. I brewed coffee the way my mother always used to, 1 spoon of sugar, no cream, and sat on the balcony wrapped in a sweater that still smelled faintly of her perfume. For the first time in forever, I wasn't trembling with fear or uncertainty. The storm had left me hollow, but the hollow felt clean, ready to be filled again. I stared across the skyline of Lexington, the breeze carrying faint car horns, the bark of a neighbor's dog, and the smell of fresh dough from the bakery below. The city felt awake in a way I hadn't been for months. My phone was full of missed calls and messages that morning. Old high school friends, distant relatives I hadn't heard from in years, even coworkers at Monroe General who had seen clips of the confrontation posted online. Apparently, someone had live-streamed part of it. The internet had already formed opinions, some calling me brave, others calling Ryan arrogant. Half the comments were from strangers who said they cried or felt vindicated by watching it. I scrolled through quietly. A part of me numb, another part relieved. People saw me. For months I had been invisible inside my own story, and now the world knew there was another version of truth. By noon, Mr. Hayes called to confirm the court's follow-up hearing schedule. Ryan hadn't contested the deed after the event, though he'd sent an apology letter through his attorney that said he regretted miscommunication. Miscommunication was a wealthy word for betrayal. Still, I didn't want court battles. I told Mr. Hayes to file everything as resolved. My parents taught me to let fairness do its own work. It already had. Over the next few weeks, I split my time between work at Monroe General and visits to the mansion. The first walk inside alone was harder than the confrontation itself. The silence echoed differently now. Not oppressive, but honest. The rooms had lost their crowd, their noise, their false energy. Only the truth stayed behind, waiting. I walked through slowly, touching surfaces like I was introducing myself to the house again. The sunlight spilled through the tall windows, illuminating specks of dust that looked like golden snow. This was what home felt like when Liz left the room. I began small. The first thing I did was remove what Ryan had installed. The banners, the fake art, the expensive rugs that didn't belong. I found my mother's original couch wrapped in storage in the attic, slightly torn but still beautiful. I brought it down myself, even though it nearly broke my back. Then I opened every window, letting autumn air sweep the house clean. It smelled of dust and time, but also hope. Reclaiming that space wasn't about ownership. It was about remembering why it mattered. During one of those days, while cleaning out the study, I found a journal under Dad's old desk drawer. It was full of notes about family finances, but in the margins, he had written reflections, almost letters to us. One line made me stop. If the house stands for anything at all, let it stand for love without pride. I read it over and over until the words sank deep enough to bring tears. Pride had destroyed what love built, and now I was left with the quiet work of rebuilding. I took a leave from the hospital for 2 weeks. I wanted to restore the mansion not into something flashy or new, but something honest. I hired a few local craftsmen from Bennett Homeworks, men who reminded me of my father, calm, respectful, deliberate. We repainted the walls soft cream instead of white, replaced modern fixtures with simple oak ones, and brought the piano tuner from downtown Lexington to restore my mother's old piano key by key. I could barely afford it all, but the process felt sacred, necessary. Every afternoon, I'd make sandwiches with sourdough and turkey from Harper's Market, pour lemonade into my parents' chipped crystal pitcher, and sit on the back porch after the workers left. The magnolia tree swayed gently, and sometimes, if I listened closely, I could swear I heard laughter again, faint echoes of Sunday dinners long gone. Ryan didn't appear for a while. His social media went quiet, which was strange coming from a man who documented every breakfast he ate. Part of me worried. Another part wondered if he was finally reflecting somewhere in silence. A month after the confrontation, I got a knock at the door. When I opened it, he was standing there, hair messy, eyes tired. He looked nothing like the man from that night. No tailored suit, no camera smile, just my brother. Smaller now, real again. He hesitated before speaking. I didn't come to fight. I didn't ask you to, I said quietly, motioning for him to sit. He looked around the room, at the smell of fresh paint and lemon candles, at the piano that gleamed near the window. You brought it back, he said. I did. We sat there for a long time, words clumsy and cautious. Finally, he said, I thought success would make me free, but it just made me feel like a stranger in my own family. I wanted to be someone Dad would admire, but I ended up being the person he'd warn us about. There was sincerity in his voice that caught me by surprise. I was angry, I admitted. But more than that, I was sad. You had everything already. You just needed to see it. His eyes watered. You think I can fix it? No, I said softly. But you can face it. That's how healing begins. He nodded slowly, and that was the last time we spoke with bitterness between us. He left after an hour, promising to come by again to help with the repairs. For weeks, I held on to that encounter as proof that some things could mend quietly. But forgiveness isn't a switch. It's a series of choices you make each morning. Some days I woke up with peace, others with the familiar ache of betrayal. Still, the house helped me heal. Its rhythm became my own again. I started reading evenings by the fire, playing the piano on Sundays, and hosting dinners with close friends. One Saturday, I invited the nurses from Monroe General over. We cooked cheeseburgers with cayenne aioli, baked apple pies with too much cinnamon, and drank iced tea sweet enough to sting our teeth. It was loud, imperfect, almost chaotic, but it felt like family. Someone turned on music, and we danced barefoot on the porch beneath string lights. I looked up, the stars bright and impossible, and thought, maybe this is what survival looks like. Not revenge, not triumph, just breathing freely again. Halfway through that night, while the laughter filled the air and the smell of grilled corn lingered, I caught Mr. Hayes watching quietly from the porch steps. I walked over to thank him. He smiled softly. "You turned it back into a home," he said. "Your parents would be proud." "Not just a home," I said. "A promise kept." He nodded and handed me a sealed envelope. "Before she passed, your mother asked me to give this to you when the time was right. I think now is that time." My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a handwritten note in her graceful cursive. "Emily, love will always give you back what fear takes away. Let no one make you smaller than the truth." I pressed the letter to my chest, the ink slightly smudged from my tears. It felt like she was there again, reminding me of everything I'd forgotten but somehow always known. If this story touched your heart, take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell so you never miss more stories of endurance, justice, and quiet strength. Comment below with a short sentence like, "A story that turns pain into peace," so we know you felt it too. A few months later, the mansion stood fully restored, but instead of keeping it locked up like a shrine, I decided to use it for something living. With Mr. Hayes' help, I set up a nonprofit foundation named the Parker Scholarship Fund, dedicated to offering college aid to young caregivers in Kentucky. Having worked in a hospital, I'd seen too many young students sacrificing their futures to help sick parents or siblings. My parents believed deeply in education and compassion. This was the perfect way to honor them. The fund launched with a small ceremony in the mansion's garden. There were homemade banners, local press, and students from Lexington High School. Ryan showed up quietly, standing near the back, his eyes wet the entire time. When his turn came to speak, he kept it simple. "My sister reminded me what family means. Everything we have only matters if we share it," he said. And for the first time, I believed him. As people clapped, I looked around. The magnolia tree bloomed above us, the same one that started this story. Its scent filled the air, sweet and strong. The piano played faintly inside, a melody from the open window. For a moment, time folded into itself. The past, the grief, the betrayal, all melted into the present like snow against sunlight. I realized then that justice had never been about revenge. Justice was the moment when truth stopped hurting and started healing, the kind that doesn't shout but stays still and unshakable. That night, after everyone left, I sat alone at the piano. The house was quiet except for the soft hum of crickets outside and the ticking of the old clock on the mantel. I rested my fingers on the keys and played slowly, unsure of the song but letting emotion guide the rhythm. The notes filled every corner of the room, blending with memory, echoing into spaces that once held pain. As I played, I spoke aloud to the empty house. "I'm okay now," I said. "We're okay." I didn't know if I was talking to my parents, the house, or the version of myself I almost lost, but it didn't matter. Silence answered softly, and for once, it felt kind. When I walked outside, the stars seemed closer. The magnolia branches shifted in the wind, scattering petals across the grass like blessings. Standing there, I thought about how far I'd come. From the night I stood locked out at the gate to the day people stood in that same yard celebrating a cause born from forgiveness. They say every hero's journey ends where it began, but it's never the same place because the hero is never the same person. Maybe that's what healing really means, returning home not as the girl who was wronged, but as the woman who learned to rise. I tilted my face toward the night sky, whispering a quiet thank you no one could hear. The world didn't owe me fairness. It gave me something better, resilience. And as the last porch light flickered out behind me, I knew this story didn't end with triumph or revenge. It ended with peace, and that, I realized, was the greatest victory of all.